Alexa, stop. Morning, Jack.
Good morning.
I was going to send you a draft press release we have going with Walmart to provide local delivery services, including same-day service in certain locations. So I'll send that to you later today.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it'll really help a lot of these, depending on where they're located. I think it'll help them with logistics. That they're only charging $10 for same-day delivery.
Wow.
About the same as putting it in the post office in many cases. The delivery radius is 10 miles for the $10 and $15 for up to 20 miles. Same day.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that we can figure out a way to use the Walmart logistics. They have so many stores in our rural areas.
Yeah.
Nice to figure out how we could leverage that in some way for these merchants, for these online sellers.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So today we have some guests from Penn State. They're going to be listening in and asking questions. They're the woman who runs this program. They have 21 accelerators like ours on 21 Penn State campuses around Pennsylvania, and they're looking to figure out how to do e-commerce. So they're looking at what we're doing to try to get some insights. They really have quite an entrepreneurship infrastructure up there in Pennsylvania. The president of Penn State is kind of behind it. So they've got, they just opened a $58 million building on Penn State's campus to house this program. And then they have 21 Penn State campuses around the state that have accelerators for each of their local areas. So it's an interesting approach, and it's attracted a lot of funding over the years from their legislature and so forth.
Cool.
So how you doing? You doing good?
Yeah, we're got some family issues going on that's kind of knocked me out for a while, and
hope everything's okay.
More with my daughter and her husband are having some problems. Here we are wiped out staff-wise.
Wow.
We just got a new director of marketing, which you may have seen.
I did, yeah.
There are 4 assistant directors, 4 assistant directors. 2 are vacant, partly because Peter, who got promoted out of one position. 3rd position, my boss is retiring at the end of the month.
Oh, wow.
So 3 of 4 positions are vacant for that. And we have a boatload of other staff positions that will not be filled until they fill the assistant director positions. And some of those positions have been vacant about a year.
Oh my goodness.
So we are dumb on hiring.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
plus we have all the other problems of people want more money, and we just got an email that they're looking at how to address that.
Yeah. Is that basically going back to the state and trying to get them to realize what's happening, or?
The state understands because it's happening to a lot of other departments, and even in our department. Apparently, it sounds like we're going to be able to address it internally.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I saw where Sherry Barefoot is coming back on some basis.
Yeah, she is retired from here, and the Specialty Food Association liked her so much, and they've blossomed as an organization, membership-wise. They're hiring her as an executive director or marketing coordinator in some capacity. So they had earlier had a staff position, got rid of it, and now they brought it back and brought her into that role.
Wow. Oh, that's great. Well, she's a great addition, and I'm glad she'll still be around.
Yeah, she should be able to do quite a bit for them now, because with us, she was massively consumed with these major events that we host. And she was the one smothered by having to do all the venue contracts and all this stuff that just ate up your time.
Yeah.
And now she can focus just on her membership.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. So a bunch of people are joining. I don't necessarily know everybody. So there's my boy, Andy.
Dennis, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
All right. All right. And here comes Lee. Yeah, right. All right. Looks like the gang is doing pretty well for a Friday or a Monday morning. I'm impressed. And I see that you all got the memo to wear blue shirts, so I'm very pleased to see that.
It was
right.
in the Zoom invite.
Yeah, that's right. Wear a blue shirt. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I think there'll be some more folks joining in per usual. So Grant, if you'll pay attention to that, I appreciate it. So I'm going to start off by introducing my friend Lee Erickson, who is, I don't know, a big shot at Penn State's entrepreneurial world. And she's been real helpful to me, sharing stuff that they've learned and some of their stuff that they've done. You know, so we're very pleased to have her here. We have a mutual friend, Gene Reichers, who when I was at JMU, I used to work with Gene quite a bit. So it's great to have him introduce us. So Lee, I'm going to introduce you or ask you to say a couple things in a second. I do have one other, two other introductions I want to make. One is Michael Harris, who has come on, and David Mayo. They're waving. They did not get the memo on the blue shirt, but that's okay. They're wearing purple or something probably. Mike is the director of the Miller School of Entrepreneurship at ECU. I asked Mike to come on because I know Lee wonders what a renegade like me is doing with an institution. So she you know, made it. I decided to invite Mike and David. They're like real professors, you know, unlike me. I play one on TV.
So Lee, we are the pirates. So we love folks.
Yeah, okay.
Push the envelope. So it's a perfect fit with Dennis.
Oh, great. And then David Mayo, who is sitting next to Mike, he is the head of what's called the Chris Small Business Center, which Accelerate Rural is technically part of. David is the guy who hustles grants to keep us going, and he's an entrepreneur himself, has about 10 businesses that he runs with one hand tied behind his back. I don't know how he does it. So we're real glad to see him. And then we also have on here, and I must admit, I don't know who this is from Cayuga County. I know a friend of whoever that is from Cayuga County, please introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Jessica Wrench from the Q County Chamber of Commerce. My boss, Brad Broadwell, is interested in this program, bringing this program to Cayuga County. So I'm here to learn a little bit more how you guys run everything.
Fantastic. Brad Broadwell is an old friend of mine from elementary school, believe it or not, in New York a million years ago. So he reached out not too long ago to see what we were up to. I'm also, if I'm missing anyone else, Lee, I don't know if you want to introduce other folks on your team.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having us. So I want to introduce Annie Hughes. Annie and I work together. We, at Penn State, we have 21 innovation hubs already around the state. And it's a rural state, hence our interest. So Annie does, the focus is on helping them with centralized services and programming and business models and sustainability. And I also want to introduce you to Elizabeth Hay. Elizabeth Hay is the director of the Launchbox that is here in State College. And we already provide programming and business support to community and Penn State people. You don't have to have any affiliation with Penn State to use any of our services, which is fairly unique. So we're just here to learn about what you're doing, Dennis, and how it's working, and whether or not we can try to run a pilot, and the tech support, all of it. So we need to just like open your brain up and.
Well, we don't want to do that, Lee, in polite company. So we'll keep that on the down low. But I thank you very much, and we really appreciate your interest in what we're doing. Like I mentioned, you have forgotten more than I know. So, we hope to learn a lot from you. So I'm going to introduce somebody that many of you know, Andy Gilicinski, who is kind of my, I call him the CPG GOAT, the greatest of all time, consumer product goods guy. And I'm not going to steal any thunder from him, but you'll see why he's the GOAT after his presentation. And the plan here for everybody is Andy's going to talk for about 35, 40 minutes or so about what he's doing. And it's open. Andy is not, he's not afraid to answer questions or engage. So don't hesitate to do that. I do want to make just a point that we try in our program to bring in outside experts in various areas. And Andy has been part of our program since we started. And I'm very, very flattered, impressed that he would take his time to meet with us. But we do try to foster outside expertise and even mentors in some cases to help our students. Also, I want to explain to the students that, please, Lee and her team may well ask questions of you at the end after Andy's presentation. Feel free to say whatever, including negative. It's okay. We can take it. But she's very curious about some of your experiences. And Lee, we have a mixture of folks who have taken this class more than once and also first-time people. So I think in your email, you said you wanted to ask some questions. So we'll do that. But with all of that, I'm now going to introduce my friend Andy, who is going to just get you all so jazzed up. I'm not going to be able to get you back into the presentation afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Let me, I assume I'm okay with sharing screen. Yeah. I have some.
I made you, hopefully we did that, and Grant will help us if we.
Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Let me make it happen. Here we go. So what I've put together is a set of slides that hopefully you can all see that will give a little bit of additional context to the conversation, but by no means is this just a slide presentation. I'd love to get your comments, questions. Please jump on in as we go along. My name is Andy, as Dennis mentioned, great fan of the state of Pennsylvania. In fact, I was just in Pittsburgh a week ago. Fantastic vibe there. A lot of exciting things happening in the city. My background is in consumer packaged goods, consumer products. I have worked for over 20 years for a set of large consumer packaged goods companies, launched a whole bunch of products into the marketplace, most of which are still on the shelf today, which is amazing. Did about $2 billion of acquisitions, and I'll talk a little bit about the role that M&A or mergers and acquisitions can play in the consumer products world. And now I'm running an entrepreneurial firm, doing what I've always dreamed about doing, which is helping a broad range of companies with either new product introductions or innovation work. So let me go ahead and kick this into slideshow mode. And get started. What I'd love to do today in the next 35 minutes is cover a couple of topics. One is the power and value of branding in consumer goods. Talk a little bit about some of the metrics and ways to know when you've got a powerful consumer brand, and then talk a little bit about, in this day and age, the role of new brands in the consumer packaged goods industry. Now, all of you are lifelong consumers of consumer brands, so you are by definition experts. How many of you are working or have worked recently in a consumer products company or specifically on a consumer brand? Anybody in the group? Anybody? Dennis? Yeah. And any of the group from Penn State?
Not recently. I mean, depending on, you could say all our teams, a lot of our teams have consumer brands, but I would say they don't have a brand yet because they don't have a following. So I don't, you know.
Okay. And if I could ask, Lee, what your overall impression is of the industry? What your overall impression is of consumer brands? What would you say?
That's quite a question. Overall, I mean, I guess it's everything that an individual would go buy by themselves without representing a company, and it can be as trivial as a Band-Aid or as big as a Rolex.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would add that I think that from my perspective, there seemed to be a lot more niche consumer brands than there was when I was younger. It seemed like, there was all these consumer brands, and then there were all these store brands or private label, and that was about it. And now it seems like there's so many. I'm going to call them niche, but they could be giant niches. Sunbum you've mentioned before, Andy. Other brands that just kind of seem to come out of nowhere, particularly the online ones that they really might be aimed at a very specific demographic or age group or population, whereas I think in the old days it was either big or private label.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other nice bit about this group too is the why people buy, I think, is changing, right? In terms of, it's not just the product, it's the company. I think that's why this is so compelling. What you guys do is you put a face to rural entrepreneurs who may not have that kind of, but then now I know who's making the jam or raising the cattle or doing these amazing artisan things. So I think that's a flip that we're starting to see.
That is such an interesting observation. And over time, consumer brands have become more sophisticated. And part of their evolution has been they try to stand for more. Back in decades ago, it was good enough to just say, hey, we sell mac and cheese, type of thing. It's something very, very simple. Now there is much more both sophistication to how the sale is being done, but there's also much more meaning that is being put behind brands. It's not just what we do, it's how we do it. It's why we do it. And we'll get into that in just a moment. So brands have a number of attributes. One of them that I'd like to start off with is the power of branding. What is the value of branding? And there is a very inexact science out there around calculating brand value. This is a chart from last December that Forbes put out for the world's most valuable brands. And of course, the brand is listed at the left. The brand value is in the chart that's towards the middle, along with a one-year change of that brand value. And what the brand value is calculated as is the power of the pricing, the power of being able to get your brand on shelf with favorable shelf space versus competing brands. The power is the ability to leverage advertising that might be done on behalf of that brand, instead of having to introduce it from scratch. If you're talking about a brand that people already have familiarity with, you've made your advertising much more efficient as a result. Of course, the chart after that is the brand revenue. This is the actual sales of the brand, and then the advertising that is after that. And as you look at the top 5 brands that Forbes has compiled, you look at Apple. Their calculated brand value is about $241 billion. Their sales are very similar, right around $260 billion. which suggests that, the brand has a certain power to it. You'll look at Microsoft, their brand revenue, their sales are 125 billion. Their brand value is 163 billion almost. It's larger than their sales. So it would suggest, which may feel counterintuitive actually, that Microsoft's brand power is a little bit stronger than Apple's, which I would not have guessed in advance. And when you calculate the brand value and it is greater than the revenue, then that suggests that the brand is working harder for that particular company than the other example, the Apple example. Look at Amazon. Sales of about 260 billion, brand value of 135 billion, about half of that. That suggests that the Amazon brand, as well known, as ubiquitous as it is not that strong by comparison. And if you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, how many of you buy on Amazon and you see something called Amazon Basics? Basics probably doesn't convey to you that it's the Rolex premium, version of that particular product. So it suggests kind of a low end, much more commoditized branding around Amazon. And that is reflected in the relatively low brand value versus the sales. In the second half of the brands from Forbes' top 10 list, there's a very interesting one called Coca-Cola, which kicks in. And you'll notice their sales are about 25 billion. Their brand value is almost 65 billion, more than twice the power of their, or the size of their sales. And you would probably be concluding right now, gosh, I'll bet their brand value is really working for them, working very hard for them. And you would be exactly right. The mind share that Coke has in consumers' minds, so many of them are wanting a Coke before they even think about what it tastes like, just because they're used to that brand, they're loyal to that brand, they're familiar with that brand, its ability to command pricing, its ability to get good margins with their vendors, with their bottle suppliers, with ingredient suppliers, their ability to get good shelf space at the 7-Eleven, at the Walmart, all the different channels that they sell in, is all reflected in the power of that brand. And you can see other great examples. Disney, very powerful brand. Samsung, its brand value is only a quarter of its sales. There's another brand that you might say, very commoditized. Their branding is not very powerful for their products. Same with McDonald's. Less than half of their sales is reflected in their brand value. So again, this is just one measure. It's not a highly scientific measure, but it gives you a feel for whether a brand is actually working hard for a company with consumer products that are trying to influence you and help convince you of the value of their proposition. One thing that is interesting about Coca-Cola is the consistency with which they have developed their branding. That's part of the secret sauce, and there are many case studies around how effectively Coke has done this. They started back in 1886, and you can see in the top of the slide that by about 1900, 1905, the script, the naming of and the logo of Coca-Cola has kind of already developed to the point where you and I can recognize it today in 2022. They've modified it periodically. They changed with colors, a little bit of tweaking with the fonts, some logos around it with the bottle or not the bottle and with red swirls and things like that. But fundamentally, over the years, they have kept very close to a very consistent look and feel of the brand name. And the bottle that the product is even in has become iconic. You can see at the bottom, the initial bottle done in the 1890s and up to 1902 was a little bit different. But by 1900, excuse me, they had landed on a fundamental shape of a bottle. And if you looked at an outline of that bottle, pretty much any time from 1900 on to today, 2022, you'd say, I recognize that bottle of Coke, whether it comes in a glass bottle, colored, clear, whether it came in a plastic bottle, you would say, I think I recognize what that product is. And that is a really outstanding example of consistency, and ability to get in consumers' minds a very consistent view of what that brand stands for. And that is part of the recipe for creating a powerful brand. If you change your marketing message every 2 years, a new marketing VP comes on and has a different idea, and then 2 years later that happens again, eventually a brand can stand for nothing. Even when they think they're talking a lot in the marketplace, they stand for nothing. You got to be consistent and have something that is a very powerful message that is repeated over and over to really help strengthen and create a powerful brand. So how about today? It's kind of intimidating hearing about these 100-year-old brands and thinking, well, gee, what chance do I have of starting a new brand? Well, the good news is there are tremendous and powerful new brands that are being started every day. And these brands are, in many cases, reaching rapid success and really being able to meet a need that consumers have that is unique and differentiated and adds value to their lives. A great example of the food space, we talked briefly about mac and cheese. I mentioned it, and I did so on purpose. Talk about is there a more humble product out there at the grocery store than simple mac and cheese? Those of us that have been around a while, we remember the neon yellow Kraft mac and cheese that's so iconic, and Annie's, an actual Annie that grew up in the 60s, in the 1980s, decided, there is room for a more healthy, a more back to the farm version of mac and cheese. There's no reason that consumers can't have something that is as farm fresh in their mac and cheese product as it is in many other products that were beginning to emerge at that time. And so in 1989, she founded the brand, literally sold it out of the back of her truck, shown here in New England, driving from store to store in Rhode Island and Boston and Massachusetts, and ended up gaining some success, initially starting with small farm standy kind of stores, but eventually going more mainstream. And the brand began growing rapidly in the 1990s. They went through a huge fundraising spurt in 2000 and then went public for many billions of dollars. And then they ended up being acquired by General Mills in 2014. This is now a large multi-billion-dollar brand. If you look at the store shelf today in your typical grocery store, you will actually see a longer line of Annie's mac and cheese, different SKUs and flavors and variants on the shelf than you will see Kraft mac and cheese, the iconic that has been around forever. So it's a great example where, just because it's a humble product category, just because a competitor's been around for many decades or potentially centuries, it doesn't mean that there isn't a consumer need that's not being addressed, that a great brand that can communicate what that fulfillment of that need is can come out and become very successful. A couple of other examples. I worked at Gillette early in my career, and I was stunned when in 2013, an upstart called Harry's started a blade company. And I thought, this is guaranteed to fail. When I worked at Gillette, their sales were over $6 billion. They had 85% dollar share in the United States. They crushed competitors, like squashed them like a bug. There was no room for a competitor. But the market began changing. And in 2013, Harry's recognized, what? There's room for something different out there. And they ended up buying a small little foundry and beginning to make blades. And within 6 years, they were offered $1.4 billion for their brand by Energizer. Part of the thing at Energizer Holdings found attractive was their business model. They were a direct-to-consumer company. They sold directly from Harry's on their website. And that's something that Gillette didn't know how to do very well. And so, once again, it can be the product itself. It can be the offering. It can be the way that they're going to market that is new and different, that creates value for consumers. And in this case, created sufficient value for Energizer to make a large offering for them. The deal ended up getting canceled by the FTC because of a concern about too much concentration in the blade space, which again, for a Gillette veteran, that is stunning. Energizer, which has the Schick brands and some other smaller brands, combined with Harry's being too much market power versus Gillette, mighty Gillette, stunning. And yet that shows how quickly the world had changed in the a mere 10 years since I had left the Gillette company. And on the bottom right is just a fascinating example. Truman's is a small company that was founded in February 19 to popularize this thing called Just Add Water system. Just Add Water are these cartridges that you stick into an empty bottle that you can fill with water, and the liquid in the water in the bottle would be squirted through the cartridge, and then out of the orifice would come whatever the kitchen cleaner that you're interested in, whether it's standard kitchen cleaner, shower cleaner, glass cleaner, whatever it might end up being. And the idea behind this is instead of throwing away the entire bottle every time you ran out and needed a new refill, you would just open up the top, take out the old cartridge, put a new cartridge in, much less plastic, fill the thing with water, you're not shipping water, and voila, you're ready to clean your kitchen again. And the idea was that this would save on resources, on water, shipping water around the country, save on plastic, and it was kind of a sustainability play. The interesting thing about this is that Just Add Water system was around in 2005. I was a brand spanking new director of home care cleaning products at Clorox in 2005, and this came across my desk. And I thought, nobody wants to be a chemist. Consumers don't want to go through the trouble. There really isn't a need here. There's no value here. And so I, like many others, passed on it. And 14 years later, after many other companies also passed on this idea, Truman's picked up on it. And within 6 months, they had a $5 million investment from Henkel as they gained distribution in Target and began to get traction as a brand. So that goes to show you that sometimes even smart people pass on really good ideas, but even more, it shows you that times can change. Consumers were not ready in 2005 for the sustainability idea. But as you've been paying attention, you're very well aware that by February of 2019, consumers were very interested in sustainability, very concerned about ocean plastic, very concerned about water, and this proposition that nobody could get excited about back in 2005, became a proposition that solved the need that had emerged. Sometimes the need is there, but it's latent, and time can help change that and can bring that alive for consumers. So all that's to say that there is still room for consumer brands today. And another humble example of one that you wouldn't think would be ripe for disruption is the wet bath tissue market. This is a great example where in 2015, just 7 years ago, there was a Shark Tank deal from a startup that hadn't made any product yet, but just had a wild ambition that they wanted to beat the world's biggest bath tissue company, Charmin, at their own game in the United States. And they decided, you know what? Charmin markets to women. Really, their message isn't very resonating yet with men. There's a gap there for dude wipes, for men to have wipes that were for them. And it was an audacious idea. They got some initial funding in 2015. By 2016, they had gotten distribution in Target. Today, they're in over 12,000 stores. They're in every one of the 4,400 Walmarts in the United States of America. They're the #2 overall toilet product in Walmart, and they are now the #1 wet wipe product, beating Charmin. And up on the upper right-hand side of the slide is just some trash talking from their CEO, who just has had so much fun with, how many people said, you guys have stupid proposition. There's no way you're going to win in this market. And he's just, I love his quote, "I'll bet on passion, hunger, and authenticity every day of the week." And his last quote, "The giants are asleep at the wheel." And that's a really interesting commentary because, in some ways, large consumer products goods. They've got tons of money. They got people with brain the size of a planet from all the best marketing schools across the United States. And you would think they've got everything going for them. They've got the smarts, they've got the market power, they've got the capability, they've got the money. But you know what? Sometimes they get sloppy. Sometimes the world changes under their feet and they don't realize it. They've got their entire existence invested in the market being a certain way, fitting their model, fitting their success, fitting their MO of how to be successful in the market and win. And sometimes consumers change on them. And often the giants are the last to recognize it, or if they do recognize it, they're almost in denial. It's like, it's just a niche. It won't have staying power. And it's these small new brands like Dude Wipes that place a bet on the market really being different, and that they believe that they have the right to satisfy that market in a new and different way. They're the ones that get to win. So I'll just pause there, and I'd love if anyone has a shout out on their latest, coolest brand that they've seen start to get traction that they think is a great example of meeting a new need that is emerging in the world.
I'll just share a story of a company here that invented Tufted Needle. They invented the first mattress that you can buy online, and they'll ship it to your house. And it was created by these two guys were out. They're out in Silicon Valley, which don't drink that Kool-Aid. You don't have to be out there. And they made a list of all the things that pissed them off, that made them mad, that made them angry, that why is it that way? And they just put mattresses on there, because if you haven't bought a mattress lately, it's not a fun thing. And they kept coming back to it. Well, it's interestingly enough, they got acquired by sort of Simmons, I think I don't know, Elizabeth, was it 8 years later or something? It was very quickly.
6.
Yeah. So I would agree. I think this is interesting in terms of opening the door up for early stage or small businesses to say, depending on what you're doing, you can do whatever you want. And just because you're small, or just because you might be not in an urban area, that doesn't mean you don't have potential. So I think that's a great story. I would be curious. I think, Dennis, you said you had some entrepreneurs on with us, right? Who've been through the program.
Yep.
I would be curious, and Andrew, if I'm taking us off track, you can say, wait, we'll do that later. But I'm curious as to what some of the business owners, the entrepreneurs, are looking to do in terms of what they consider success, in terms of why they took the program and how maybe their concept of what success is has morphed as they've learned more about opportunity. That makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just delay that a little bit, because Andy's got a tight time frame with his.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and I think that we'll definitely cover that. The other thing is what we found, at least around here, one category for me that's really been interesting has been grass-fed beef and meat. Okay, and what's really interesting to me there is there are people who are actually building significant brands online, selling grass-fed beef, and really their entire platform, from my perspective, is authenticity and transparency and honesty and connecting. And some of us, I've talked to Lee about this, about our online video, the live streaming e-commerce. That fits in with that same sort of thing, where Amazon cannot compete with the honesty of a real person who's really doing the work. And much like these Dude Wipe guys, which I love their name, by the way, they're authentic and sincere, and they're passionate. And I think that's what our small businesses have going for them. And what we hope to do in our class is give them resources to help do that. That's really what it boils down to. Andy, I'm sorry to interrupt you and blab on so much. Go ahead.
Point. I love the point, Dennis, and actually, Lee, I would just say that very few entrepreneurs have the full story figured out at the beginning of the launch of their brand or their company. The typical thing, and I'm sure anyone that's started a company will reinforce this. You learn as you go. You think you've got the right proposition, and it turns out that people are interested in some angle a little bit off from that. And then that's the beauty of the entrepreneurial journey, is discovering that you were close, but that consumers actually have a little bit of a different idea than exactly what you had in mind.
Yeah,
And
no, we experienced that, in the many years that we've been doing this, we experienced that. It was more a function of, I always like to know what the goal of the entrepreneur is, because sometimes I'm not looking to create a $1 billion company.
that's right.
And trying to demystify that you all have to do that to be success. That's all I was.
Yeah, no, very, very good point. One thing that I won't show the video, but hopefully some of you have heard about Simon Sinek, and ideally, maybe have even seen his video on what does your brand stand for?
It's our first class every
awesome.
cohort. Because of you, you taught me that, and we now watch this video religiously.
Oh, this is outstanding. As you probably then know very well, the outer ring is the what. What does your company do? This is often the starting point where companies talk about themselves. Inner circle, how do you do it? Is there something unique about how you do it? And at the core, it's why. What does your brand stand for? And, going through the journey of really understanding as an entrepreneur what your brand stands for, the what, the how, and most importantly, the why, is really powerful. And I have a couple of examples here of ways that bring that alive that I have found especially inspiring. The missions and beliefs of a company are part of what helps define, a brand's why. One that's close to home here, I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Harley Davidson was born, and their mission statement is to fulfill dreams of personal all-American freedom. That you notice they're not talking about the word motorcycle at all in there. They're talking about how that product makes you feel. Disney, to create happiness for people of all ages everywhere. These are uplifting, inspiring things that really are the mission of the company, and the beliefs are another way of being able to capture that as well. One of my favorites is Nike's belief. We believe that if you have a body, you're an athlete. Talk about making a brand relevant to every single human being in this country. We all have bodies. I didn't know I was an athlete. It's aspirational. It kind of makes you think, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of cool. Maybe I need to learn more about that. And Tesla. It's not just about moving people around in a car. We believe the world needs to transition to sustainable energy. This is a belief that they have that underlies everything they do. And when you get these beliefs or these mission statements right, it's really a great way to flesh out the why of a brand exists, and to really help to create a tremendously consistent experience that is more authentic in how it's communicated to a consumer. So I'm a big believer that spending the time on that's really important. Another thing that's a real good attribute of a powerful brand is extendability. And Dennis mentioned Sunbum. This is one that I had the pleasure of helping SC Johnson acquire back in the spring of 2019. It's a sunscreen brand, very powerful sunscreen brand. And it was started back in 2010 by a pair of Australian entrepreneurs. And they came up with some very premium formulations, and they put some interesting branding around it, around relaxing and checking out for the weekend, and really just enjoying and embracing that time, the time away from the office. Even though with the price of the product, you'd think people would have to work pretty hard to be able to afford it. But it was a very successful, very clever way of marketing the brand. The cool thing about it, the one that made it especially valuable from an acquiring standpoint, is, of course, it addressed the sun care market, pretty significant market, about a $6 billion market in the US. But they created the kind of brand language, the kind of brand imagery, the kind of brand vibe that allow them to extend it more broadly to lip care, for example. Hey, we know beach skin. Guess what? Your lips are part of the skin on your body. They need to be taken care of as well. And how about babies? Babies need care on the beach as well. Baby's skin is so delicate and needs to be cared for. So they came up with a baby care set of products that address the $11 billion baby care market for sun care. And then who knows more about beach hair than Sunbum? They were able to continue to expanding into shampoos and almost a $50 billion market there. So one of the things that's very powerful about a great brand is when you can successfully start at your core, but then you can expand beyond that into adjacent areas that make complete sense, where your brand has permission to play and where you have something unique and valuable to offer to a consumer that builds on your core, but now allows you to expand how you can provide that offering to consumers in areas beyond the core. So when you think about a really powerful brand, think about how can they expand? What are ways that they can help grow their offering using their core branding and communication? Now, brands sometimes will have limits to how far you can take them. This is a particularly notorious example where Colgate decided, for reasons that are still not understood, that they needed to get into the frozen dinner market. And so they launched this delicious beef lasagna. They consumer tested it. Consumers thought it tasted really, really good. And they launched it, and it was a complete market disaster. It not only failed in the frozen food section, it also trashed their toothpaste business by over 25% for the first 6 months after this product launch. Partly because people were concerned, is there tomato paste in my toothpaste now? There was real consumer confusion and fear around what the heck was going on with the core brand. So as exciting as brand extendability can be, you also have to be careful where your brand has permission to play and where it just does not make sense. And you would think that the largest consumer companies in the world would know this very well, but every day there are mistakes where brands are going places that they really don't have permission to go. And it's important to know what your brand stands for, but also what it doesn't stand for and where it can't go. But new brands are being brought up over and over again in consumer products. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning. And one of the reasons is sometimes a new need emerges that a current brand does not have the right to go and address, just like we saw the Colgate did not have the right to go and address the frozen food market. Recent new needs that have come up include plant-based beef, the Impossible brand in the upper left. That's something that an existing brand might have tried. Something like Purdue may have tried it for chicken or something like that, but it's very risky. And in this case, it's such a new need that new brands are coming in, as opposed to existing legacy beef brands or meat brands are coming in to try to bring it alive and address it. EOS is a great example back in the mid-teens of how a fashion approach to a lip balm could provide a new need or a new way of addressing a consumer need. Burt's Bees was all about beeswax, and for them to play the fashion card wouldn't have been very authentic. So EOS was created as a new brand to be able to provide kind of a fashion statement with the famous ubiquitous egg that you might all remember from about 7 years ago. The brand had some ups and downs, but it was a great example of a new need in fashion and lip balm being addressed in a new way. Who can forget the viral video that created Dollar Shave Club in the lower left? This was an example where you almost mocked the excess of the success of the Gillette company and created an entirely new brand around sort of being almost the anti-Gillette. too many blades, 21 razors on it, heck, it's more than you need. We're not paying for Roger Federer's tennis endorsements. We're just giving you a good old fashioned honest value. And it was kind of a return to value in blades and razors. And this is a brand that went for over $1 billion to Unilever to help them as they're trying to establish themselves more effectively in these viral millennial friendly brands. And then Honest was created. It's struggling a bit nowadays as a public company under Jessica Alba's leadership. A good friend of mine, Nick Vlahos, is the president of the brand, formerly of Clorox. They're really creating kind of a new need around a very health conscious, ingredient conscious consumer brand for both personal care and various baby implements. So as new needs come up, sometimes an existing brand can address them. Sometimes it takes a new brand to help reflect that need and solve for the consumer desire in the marketplace. And here's a great example where Unilever has made it a practice over the years of staying fresh. This is over $100 billion, 90-year-old consumer products firm that has kept itself fresh by a series of acquisitions over the years. They've got the power, they've got the marketing minds to create brands internally within their own company, but they recognize that they're not going to figure out all the trends by themselves. And that this whole group of entrepreneurs out there that's constantly looking at the market, seeing what's changing in terms of consumer needs, and creating new brands around addressing those needs are sometimes in a better position to really capitalize on a new trend than having big company create its own brand every time it sees a new trend. And they have been doing this. In 2000, they bought Ben & Jerry's to really go after this new socially conscious ice cream brand. They bought a number of hair care brands in 2010 as well, Dollar Shave Club in 2016. They bought Seventh Generation in 2016 as well, going after a new way of approaching both social consciousness as well as concern around chemical ingredients in their products. By the way, Unilever was the largest company that Seventh Generation was railing against. And so in a way, it was completely ironic for Unilever to absorb Seventh Generation, bring them in, and then help nurture them for what they were and learn through their eyes on how to address these millennial friendly, chemical concerned consumers that were being served by Seventh Generation. Korean beauty, or K-beauty, was becoming hot back in the late 2000 teens. And so a major firm was purchased by Unilever in 2017 to take advantage of that and to help popularize globally the K-beauty trend. And they continue to be on the prowl today. In fact, we continue to cheer them on to potentially buy a new Miller School startup from East Carolina University. And that's the great place to end on. My hope is that this was a great chance for you to just think a little bit about differently about how brands are formed, the needs that they address, and different ways that consumers can benefit from all the entrepreneurs, whether they're in big companies or whether they're just new startups trying to create an authentic, hardworking brand to help communicate a great proposition and help make the world a better place through what they have to offer, whether it's grass-fed beef products or blades and razors from to give you something new and different from 100-year-old companies like Gillette.
Well, Andy, thank you so much. Andy has a speaking engagement that he has to run to, so we kind of shoehorn him in. So thank you, Andy, very much for your presentation. And we, as always, appreciate your enthusiasm and your view of really anything is possible if you really put it together with a little bit of a track to run on. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to meet you all, and I hope you have a fantastic session. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Andy. See you.
Thanks, Andy. It's always good to see you.
Okay, take care. All the best.
So, Lee, I'm going to open it up to you and your team. the folks here who might have some questions about some of our entrepreneurs, and so you're free to ask.
Okay, so I will ask the first question to the entrepreneurs. And Dennis, we were hoping to get a little bit into the how the sausage is made, right? In terms of
No problem.
the curriculum and that, but I'd love to hear from the people that have been through the program. A couple things. Why did you sign up for this program? And what was your goal going in? Like, how do you define success?
Okay, Kime, you want to give it a shot, or since I always call on you first?
And I appreciate that as well. The why was, I had more questions than I had answers, and I thought this was a good place to start. The goal, I don't know what the end goal is. I'm enjoying the journey, building relationships with other small businesses, looking at what they've done, learning from each other. Certainly Dennis's input and his connections have been a great value to this program. But like I say, this is, I don't know, multiple visits to this cohort, and I look forward to many more, because everyone, although some things are the same, there's so much different, and I gained so much vast knowledge and things that I didn't really look and know that I wanted to do. A quick example would be that I've just partnershiped with another small business that went through this program, and we came up with a product together. So we merged into a new product that we've been able to launch, and amongst many other nut products, but it's our own, and it is a little bit unique. So
Awesome, very cool. Clearly you do candies. And I like the fact that you have your name of your company right there, because that's how you start building awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sana, why don't you jump in, Sana? Sana has a unique perspective, I think.
Well, so when this is my second time around. When I first joined, I did not know what to expect. I really didn't. But I knew that it would help me. It's supposed to help me. I'll go see, what happens. But what it did for me, and the reason that I'm back the second time around, is that it made me feel like I was part of a community. Because being an entrepreneur, as most of us know, is kind of lonely. You're doing things, it's basically you're living in your head. It helped me talk things out. And Dennis, I think he is just, it's really him. He's always there. I've texted him randomly, even when after the program ended, I was like, oh my God, Dennis, I need help. Can you, I'm struggling. And it was just, things that were in my head, like, I don't know how to approach this. And I'm so intimidated by this opportunity. I don't know. Can you help me? And he would just call me and he would just talk me through it, So it was the support, being part of the community, networking in general. I got to meet a lot of others here that I saw that were dealing with the same issues that I was dealing with. So I wasn't really alone. And also it brought a little bit of a structure to my day. I look forward to these meetings every day. So that's why I'm back for the second time. Thank you.
I just want to point out, in both Kime and Sana's case, they had very successful corporate jobs that they got to the point where they decided they wanted to do something more of a passion project and more what they were all about. So I think that if this was Silicon Valley, you might see Kime and Sana, in some kind of tech startup, but here they're in, especially foods and trying to solve problems that consumers have. So I appreciate them. Samantha, how about you? You wanna chime in? You're off screen, but yeah.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I came in a little bit late. Yeah, I can just sort of say the same thing as Kime and Sana did. Because I think when you work on your own, I never worked in the food business. I have also a food business. So it's very helpful to community, networking, and problem solving together. So that's kind of why I was here, and also for expertise and leadership that Dennis provides on where we can go to solve the problems that we have. Yeah, that's what I'd contribute.
Awesome. So Dennis, can you give us the rundown of like how long the program is, what some of the, and if you have like curriculum or agenda you can send us, that might help. But you meet weekly. I'm just curious about.
Yeah, so we meet,
Topics.
yeah.
And then, but what I also really want to know is the tech support, like what do you need resource wise to stand this up to work with your teams?
Okay. So let me start with the simple stuff. So we meet Monday through Thursday for
Okay.
1 hour by Zoom for a 10-week period. So each cohort is 10 weeks long, and 4 hours a week,
Okay.
and by a Zoom. We really haven't had a lot of complication from as far as technical. We use Zoom. I have a variety of tools that I've kind of put together. I have kind of a technology background, so I'm familiar with this stuff.
I'm talking technology more in setting up their web presence, their Spotify or their.
Well, what we do is we try to provide resources. Okay, so we provide access to resources. So we ourselves, we don't build websites. We don't do a lot of the hands-on stuff, but we have relationships with tons of different providers that we've figured out over time. Like we have a really big Shopify partner. He's one of the largest in the world. Actually, he's out of Houston, Texas. And he gives our guys, our people, a great deal that, much less than if they were trying to get it on their own. And they get really high level service. But so we have a variety of vendors that we try to connect people with on an as needed basis. And I have a fair amount of experience with online businesses and building an online business. So I'm able to kind of steer a little bit, save time, things like social media, variety of things that they come across. I can streamline the process so they don't waste as much time kind of sorting out the wheat from the chaff, I guess, that's how I look at it anyway.
Annie and Elizabeth, you have questions too, so.
I do. Dennis, or anybody, how did you hear about the program? How did specifically you learn about how to get into the program?
Well, let me take a shot at that. So this whole thing is to the credit of David Mayo, who's here on the presentation. This was his brainstorm to come up with this concept. And then through the pandemic and different things that happened, it's kind of become its own, I guess, its own thing that maybe, took a little bit of direction from my background. I happen to know a lot of folks in the specialty food industry, in the Department of Agriculture. In fact, Jack Nails, who is on this call, unless he's left, I don't know if Jack is still here. He's actually one of the executives at the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, and he is taken this class this time because he's had so much feedback from various people, and he felt like he wanted to get a good handle on it. But we have primarily been word of mouth through the ECU ecosystem of entrepreneurs in the Miller School. It has not been a big budget operation from the perspective of marketing or any of that kind of stuff. It's mostly been word of mouth. I don't know if anyone wants to speak up that's in the class, that how they found it, or yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I saw something on LinkedIn, I recall. That's how I connected with you, Dennis.
Okay, great.
And I actually, I'm a member of the NC Specialty Foods and got to be in C, and I was on their website and scrolled through a presentation you had done about the class, and that's when I reached out to you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was there. I did a summer. They had a summer series last summer, and I was one of the speakers on that, and that did result in some awareness of what we're doing in that group.
There's no cost for this, right?
No.
Okay.
And Sydney, Sydney was one of our winners of the Pirate Entrepreneurship Challenge, and so she came kind of from the student side.
Mm-hmm.
We had some success with social media campaigns in our pilot cohort. We actually had so much demand, we kind of stopped doing social media advertising. We were getting a lot of quality participants from the connections, especially with some of the ag connections.
Okay.
We also have a potential funder who is geographically constrained, and so we turned on some advertising in their region to bump up the numbers and interest from that region too. I think we've had what, close to 300 applicants, Dennis?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Why do you think you have so many? I mean, that's, and
Well,
you run it, how often do you run it, and why do you think there's such a demand?
Well, I personally think there's a real need. If you heard what, Kime and Sana and Samantha said, being an entrepreneur is kind of lonely. It's helpful to find kindred spirits. And what we have found is there's a sense of community here. And we've had a lot of kind of informal arrangements, like Kime mentioned, starting a new product. We've had a ton of that kind of thing where someone will call up and say, hey, I heard you in the class and, I'm thinking of this or that. And so there's been a lot of that kind of synergy. And I think it's like anything else. And, we're a relatively small community, I think. Just really the need is to provide expertise and community to folks who are trying to compete, particularly if you think of the pandemic, where, a lot of the ways that people were considering going forward with getting on grocery store shelves, et cetera, just disappeared. Restaurants, we had a real influx of farmers at one point because they lost their restaurant business. It just completely disappeared overnight. So we're somewhat topical. We're somewhat able to help people who are maybe navigating particularly the online world. And there's not many programs that I'm aware of that really kind of focus on that and help people, with how do you do that? How does it work? And we've had pretty good success, I think, helping people figure that process out.
Are you focused on food and ag, or might you have physical is there a restriction in the type of business?
No, there's no restriction. We kind of go where the heat is, I guess, in terms of, ag in North Carolina is by far the largest industry. So it's a natural, but we've had we've had retailers, we've had all different kinds of businesses. One of our businesses, she's not here today, but I always like to tell her story. She was an undergraduate and she started going out in the woods and finding unique insects and plants and then covering them in copper. And selling them as jewelry. And she has just been wildly successful. She has bought a house and a car during her first year out of undergraduate. And it's just remarkable. And she's really kind of the queen of the live streaming e-commerce. All of her business now, I think, or 90% is in fact live streaming. And she's really quite the celebrity, has built quite a following. And I don't think she would have been able to do that without our help.
Hey Lee,
Yeah.
hey Lee, it's Mike. That if you ask me, that really is the secret sauce that I think oftentimes on the campus or in a program that they're too siloed in their approach. We serve a specific type of clients. We try to serve all types of clients. You said this up front: diverse entrepreneurship, inclusive, where we try to meet the client where they're at, regardless of the product type, of the scale. That's sometimes it's fun to talk about those who want to scale all the way up, but if you're in Eastern North Carolina and you're trying to create a nice enterprise and you don't want to be Elon Musk, hey, we're happy to work with you. Yeah, so that inclusive style of trying to meet the clients where they're trying to go, I think it's critical. I know that sounds like a very simplistic thing,
No.
but it's so important.
Yeah. So you meet, you meet once those 4 hours a week. Are there, just tell me a little bit about the structure. Do you have coaching sessions later, like one-on-ones? Do you have specific, we don't call it homework because it's not a class specific, tasks that people do between? I'm just curious to kind of.
We don't have any homework. I'm kind of these folks are all busy with their companies. These are, for the most part, they're not students with no other thing going on, right? They're busy. So we try to deal with that, and we try to be oriented toward providing resources. So I don't do a lot of workbooks or any of that kind of stuff. It's just someone, Sana will call up, hey, I need to do this or that. Do you know anybody? And that's kind of the role that we play. We help create the community. People can talk to each other. And then I'm always available. I tell folks, I got a little Calendly link that I sent out, and people can schedule me whenever they want, within reason. And I'm happy to engage. And I've had some people where I may have spent as much as 10 hours, over time, and other people 15 minutes. It's not, it just depends on the person and what it is that they want. But we try to be open and try to be a resource. So, in the case of Mike and David at the Miller School, it's something related to ECU. Like when we did a shop rural daily, which I know you're familiar with, and David was able to get ECU to do some promotion for that and to do social media posting and without it being a big hairy deal. We try to get stuff done without a lot of drama. That's kind of how we operate.
Awesome.
I had one question. So how do you classify a rural entrepreneur? Does someone have to be in a certain area to, fall within a certain geographical zone, or?
This is you have uncovered our secret. We don't care at all about that. But we kind of position ourselves that way. And the idea that, at least in North Carolina, a tremendous percentage of the population is rural. So just by selling in rural, we try to promote, say, look, if you're willing to sell to rural people or help rural people or rural people can get on this system, we're kind of lax about that. There's no real requirement.
Thank you.
Branding, right?
There are some requirements from some of our granting agencies. So we are funded through USDA, and the way we kind of do that is.
Can I ask you what your words are?
Sorry?
USDA, I don't know your words.
Oh, Department of Agriculture.
Oh, USDA. I thought you said USGA. I was like,
My rural accent is coming through for you. So the USDA, we have some quantified metrics from them, and we just make sure we're meeting all those metrics with rural, and then anybody else who wants to sign on or over and above what our metrics are. And Dennis has done a really good job meeting all the metrics just right off the bat and saying, how can we help and serve more people through the program? So if we have someone from Raleigh or from Charlotte, we're happy to help them too, even though they're not in the rural area.
So for the entrepreneurs in the room, and I could spend all day talking to each one of you. If you had a magic wand and you could change anything about the journey in the program, what would it be? What would you do?
One word is nothing.
Okay.
I wouldn't change a thing. I think
Right.
they've got it figured out. I mean, honestly, and I mean, really.
What is it that when you say they've got it figured out, what's the thing they figured out?
Well, like Dennis said, and the other guys from ECU as well, they meet us where we are. They don't try to, it's all right, here's your curriculum. You just follow this and this is what we're going to do. No, they figure out what we're trying to achieve, what we're willing to do, and then point us in a direction and give us the guidance to go and make the next step or the next leap, if you will, to where we want to be. And then as a group, we feed off each other, help each other. But Dennis is certainly the shepherd of our group, if you will, and he's leading us through. So, and he's got enough vision, enough knowledge, and enough contacts that he can help us in a number of different ways. So I can't see where we could change anything that I could suggest that would make it any better, quite honestly.
Your paycheck will be coming, Time. Thank you.
I'd like to add here something. I've never been part of an accelerator program before, so I don't even know what others do. But what we do here works for me because, like Kyle said, I don't have to meet them. I don't have to do anything for the program. They're supporting me, and I'm getting what I need. One thing I would like to see more of was we did this shop rural project it was the last cohort. Not necessarily that, but projects like that, you know, where we came together and we worked on something for like a week or so, and it was a lot of fun, and it actually really helps me with my business, you know, just doing something different and unusual. So I would like to see something similar to that.
Me too.
Well, in our last group, Samantha took the lead on that, and she actually put some things together, Sana. So I hate you missed that, because she did a really good job of getting us together to do our sales pitches. So I'm gonna throw her out there as well, and then appreciate her taking the lead on that. Excuse me, and helping us all out.
A couple other unmuted. You gonna jump in?
Yeah.
I, I do digital content and music, and this cohort, this is my third time being here, and it's basically we were shut down during COVID, especially having a digital studio, having people come in, and this made me really, Dennis helped me rethink the whole business. We we got into e-commerce, we diversified, we found a new revenue stream, which is t-shirts, promoting the artist and brand that Dennis basically gave me the suggestion in the first cohort, and it took me, you know, a while to get everything together. But now that is one of my major streams, and now we're getting ready to go, you know, back to live streaming and selling, because it became, we're moving like 10 to 15 shirts a day at $30 a shirt, and that all came from all the resources that I got from Accelerate Rural.
Thank you, Branson. I'll pay you later also.
No, thank you.
Lee and our the friends from Penn State, we're very excited to have you here. We're extremely excited. I've got to jump off for another call,
Yeah, no,
but just wanted to say, if we can help in any way, we're glad to help. For Dennis, I think you've heard he is definitely a part of the secret sauce. That trying to find another one like him is it's a hard part. But we're excited. This has been what, the 6th time around? Is that right?
David keeps track. David is the guy who keeps track of metrics, not me.
Yep. And we're having a blast, and we learn something every time as well.
Yeah.
But I know that you guys, that you do amazing things up there. Certainly a big campus, or big campuses. So I know that if we can help in any way, we're happy to partner and collaborate. So
we just know that, you know, there's such potential with rural entrepreneurs that just don't get. And and our last stat is that 87% of our population lives within 30 miles of one of our launch boxes.
That's
we
pretty
have
cool.
that reach. We just have got to do a little bit more. So that's kind of what.
Well, and a final thought is that, and I know I've already said something like this, but we really don't try to bring the Silicon Valley model to rural. That fits for some people, but we really try to create something that's authentic and real for our clients, and to meet them where they're at and let them help drive this. And it's not just about creating a model that allows everyone to scale all the way from, you know, from A to Z. It's really trying to create something that is a scalable program, but that is custom made and tailored for a specific type of client. So I defer all the credit to the team. They do a lot of the work. I get to block some and tackle some. So
keep the administrators out of our hair.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I try to make it so they can be very creative. So, but sorry, I got to run. But if I can help in any way, just let us know.
Yeah, appreciate your time. I wrote your emails down.
Sure.
I think also.
Thanks, Dennis. We appreciate the invite.
All right, bye. I do think that you know, we evolved. You know, we started off with a goal of 10 companies per cohort, because the idea was it would be in Greenville, right, and where ECU is, and in surrounding area. And we are serving people from all over the state of North Carolina. And the reality is that it's hard for some of these folks to you know, like, for example, the Outer Banks, we've had a lot of students from the Outer Banks. Hell, that's, you know, 4 hours round trip. You know, they're not coming to class at ECU. So the online platform has enabled it to be much larger than it would otherwise. And, you know, before we kind of went a little bit slower on the social media, we were getting 150 applications for 10 slots, you know, so we had to kind of rethink that a little bit, but our average class size is somewhere between 15 and 20 companies.
Okay.
And we do it every 10 weeks. We don't take a break. We go all through the summer and so forth. And even though, you know, everyone's nice to comment on me, I really think I'm extremely easy to replace from the point of view, there's a lot of Gene Rikers in the world, and Dennis Strauss's, you know, I mean, Gene came on as a guest instructor here and he blew the place away. I thought he was going to be talking about, you know, capital and raising money. He was down in the weeds, like, okay, here's what you do to raise sales. And so I think there's a lot of folks like me, you know, who come from a kind of a venture capital background or whatever, or you know, a technology startup. I think there's a lot of folks out there in my peer group that could do this kind of thing. I really believe that.
Well, I don't know. You've done a great job. I know I want to be cognizant of time. I understand if anybody needs to drop off.
Yeah.
And we'll be offended. We're going to have to jump to, but Annie, Elizabeth, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask? We can always circle back with Dennis.
Fine, thanks. Thank you so much for letting us come in today.
Yeah.
Good luck to all your entrepreneurs too. Go get them.
Thanks.
Can't wait to buy your products.
I think the last thing is, do you just from a thing, when you meet, do you have topics that you talk about every day, or is it just like,
I will send you, I actually think I tried to send you some stuff, but I have a lot of problems with my email. What we've done, and this is more in the weeds, so if anyone finds this boring, please, I apologize. But when I first was asked to do this, I had no idea what to do. So I, of course, immediately went to best practices and started connecting with my contacts. And one of them happened to be Techstars Anywhere, which was their first virtual accelerator. I think it's in its 5th or 6th year now. And unlike all the other Techstars, it's totally virtual. And that director at that time was just wonderful. He gave me their curriculum, access to it, all their videos. So we use a Techstars kind of platform for a lot of our material, and a lot of it is available. And I just, you know, we basically leverage that. We also worked with a group called Scape, which is in Southwest Colorado. And they are also, to my way of thinking, the most successful rural accelerator that I've heard about. They're about 10 years old now, and they got a little bit of a different model, but they likewise gave me their curriculum, gave me all the learnings that they've had. And then they were not an online, they are now, but they were not. So that was a little bit different, but they likewise were in a remote rural spot, and they had all different kinds of businesses. Very few were technology, but so that's kind of what we did is take advantage of that. And then the element I think that maybe I've added this a little bit different is I try to take the temperature of the group each time and where they're at. So you've heard from some of these folks, they've been here, you know, before. So I don't go back as far with them because they've already know stuff, and we can go to the next stage. So it's a little bit roll your own based on what happens. And
that's not what I know. What roll your own means to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's good, because, you know, we have similar problems. They come in at different things, and it's hard to do individual when everybody's at different. So that would be helpful. Yeah, send me. I don't think you sent that before, but if you
tried, it may have bounced or not gotten to, but I'll try it again.
Right. So yeah, that would be helpful. All right. I want to but thank you so much for your time. Thank you, all you entrepreneurs. Keep at it. Be persistent. You know, whatever your goal is good. I hate all this concept of you have to be a unicorn. I'm like, unicorn is just a horse that stuck a horn on its head. So, you know, whatever works for you, I think is awesome. And I love to see that you're leaning in. So thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Annie, if you have a few minutes, we can meet back in my Zoom room. So
okay. Thank you all very much for your time and attention today. And don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions. We're figuring it out as we go along, truthfully, but we have had some things work. And I have to say that from my perspective, the remote aspect of it has really enabled us to be much more impactful than if we were just trying to do a local, local thing. So, and that part I think is, pretty important. Whether we could add some in-person stuff, maybe, but we have Asheville, for example, in North Carolina is a 6-hour drive from here, or 7 hours from Greenville. I mean, that's a long way, and it's a big market, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs there, but they're not coming to Greenville. So,
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody. See you all tomorrow.
Tomorrow.